Hey, you were listening to Abyss Gazing, where we celebrate all things spooky and mental health. My name is Josh, and Mark is not here on this episode. Originally, for this episode, we had planned to sit down with the band Rest Aside to talk about some of the Halloween movies. And I just got back from vacation, and our schedules just kind of got a little bit clashed between my schedule and our guest schedule. So, you guys could catch us live this Friday on YouTube at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for that conversation where we'll be diving into the band Rest Aside along with some of the Halloween lore and things we love about that, some of its mental health themes, and it's part of our 24-hour fundraising stream. We are kicking off our network blocks. It'll be us, Brilliant but Lazy, our pop culture podcast, and rounding it out with That's High Praise, a Nicolas Cage podcast. However, there is so many great creators a part of this 24-hour stream, ranging from gamers, musicians, painters, and other podcasts that we have had the fortune to call friends over the years that we have been creating content for you guys. So be sure that you guys check it out. It's youtube.com/victims and villains. We're kicking things off this week with a great cast of just awesome people with mental health and cosplay. So we're going to sit down with cosplayers, talk about mental health and some of the mental health benefits. But this is our first of several genre blast interviews that are going to range from audio, visual, written, as well as reviews. So these will be trickling down over the course of the next 6 weeks because we have so much content that came out of Genre Blast. Genre Blast is a great film festival. Is the inspiration for Horrific Hope, the reason why we do the film festival we do, and it's honestly one of my favorite times of year. And on this particular episode, we're sitting down with Paul Ragsdale and angelica-del-alba to talk about their movie Murdercise, which was one of this year's features. This is one of my favorite films of the year. If you guys have a chance to see it, I highly recommend it. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed this interview talking about Murdercise, its 80s influence, its mental health themes, and more. Have a good night, and we'll see you guys this Friday to talk about Halloween. If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Great,
How are
man.
you?
Thank you for having us.
Of course. I have had you guys on my radar. A couple years ago, I had a chance to cover a film festival that happened to have slash rep party at it, which is your guys' prelude to this one. And really loved the kind of just 80s like twist to it and like just love for it. So like before, which is kind of like the general aesthetic of a lot of your films, Murder Size, kind of keeping in the realm of that. What is it about the 80s aesthetic of like straight to video slashers do you guys find so appealing that you guys are just one love letter after another?
That is such a good question. I mean, we are 80s babies,
Mm-hmm.
so that's definitely part of it.
Yep.
So that lends itself to a lot of the nostalgia that we miss, we long for. We had the
Right.
experience of growing up with VHS tapes and going to video rental places,
Watching late night
late
TV.
night TV, and then when you're a kid and you can just find any random cassette tape that you can find, and you're like, "What's this? I don't know. I'm bored. I'll watch it." And you just end up finding all kinds of random, cheaply made, low budget, over the top, ridiculous projects that end up being just such a fun staple from your childhood. I just remember watching all kinds of crazy crap because it was there and you were
hmm
bored, and
Right, or
that's part of it.
it's just on TV,
It was just on
like
TV.
watching USA Up All Night, and just seeing the crazy movies they'd show on there. Of course, it'd be cut for television, but you can still enjoy it. But yeah,
It's
it's
one
all.
of Yeah, I was gonna say one of the things that like I mean a lot of the homages that you guys have within the filmmaking are like they're like deep cuts. Like it's not like oh yeah, like we have homage to like Freddy or Jason or Pinhead. Like we're going after, things like the Mutilator that or
Mhm.
Sorority House Massacre that are these like really straight to video like era like you had to be like in the genre to really know about it. And so when you guys were kind of prepping for the next project following Slasherette Party that kind of developed into Murder Size, what ended up actually kind of being the inspiration, or why did you guys decide to kind of go for the horror workout
Mhm.
route for this one?
But it's like, I mean, there is a small subgenre of the horror workout movies
Mhm.
that I like, but it's very small. Killer Workout, Death Spa, and then Linnea Quigley's horror workout. And just, I mean, we're really big on aesthetics, and we love like just emulating the way things look, whether it's like punk rock or it's heavy metal or hair bands. Aerobics in the 80s, just rife with, potential to recreate, and we had a few attempts before in the past. We did like a little trailer called Dance Till You Die that's included on the Cinco de Mayo movie as a commercial because that's presented like a up all night television show. And so we did that. We kind of dabbled into that kind of sweatbands and like leggings, leg warmers, and stuff like that with Dance to Die, but not too much. And then with Slash Art Party, we were supposed to shoot an all night long segment for that one too. We never got to do it. And in that little script, the host Stacey Monroe is shooting a movie, and it's called Murder Size. And I thought when I was writing it, I'll do like a little send up of Killer Workout. Like this, the host is going to be shooting a movie called Murder Size, and then we never got to do it. So when I was looking for another thing to write, I was like, oh, well, Murder Size sounded kind of fun, just making up a fake title and a fake movie. And incidentally, she uses a chainsaw in the script, or she would have used a chainsaw in the script. So I kept those things, and then just going back, to my love of Killer Workout and stuff like that, and Aerobicize and Sleepaway Camp 2's made its way in there as well. I just kind of made those combinations and put them together, and just wanted to see if I could write a simple, fast, fun story, and involving 80s aerobics and Los Angeles serial killers and that kind of stuff. Just kind of threw it all together.
I think you just proved my point again. Like that Death Spa is like another like one of those like hidden
Mm-hmm.
gems because I think that like most people when they think of like murder kind of like the aerobics kind of
Yeah.
slasher, it's always like uh the Wayne Quigley's
Yeah.
one that you
The
previously
horror
mentioned,
workout. Mm-hmm.
the horror workout. Yeah. And so like one of the things that I think you really do really well here is kind of exerting expectations. Um I kind of, when the film first opens up, we're kind of introduced to this like typical like very burly, uh, kind of dude who is kind of like betrayed and you think that he's the killer, and then we kind of take a 45-degree turn, and that just kind of keeps going and turning. When you were crafting this story, can you kind of talk about taking the love of those 80 slashers and kind of also reinventing them for a new age?
I love that. That's such a good question and
Yeah.
such a good
Yeah,
observation
great
too.
insight.
Even though we do have a huge love of the 80s and all the nostalgia, we don't want to repeat something that seems really
Sure.
predictable.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of those 80s movies, they have a very specific formula. You're used to knowing exactly what's going to happen. You can call, you know, scene by scene, like, oh, this person's going to get it. This guy's the killer. That girl, she's going to die. She's the good one. He's the good one, or whatever. And with our movies, I mean, you mentioned Slash Wet Party, that one as well. I think people were really surprised by the end. I think there was some stuff in there, which I guess I don't want to give spoilers if someone hasn't seen it yet, but who you think is running the whole evil plan, it's not who you think it is, or what you think is going to happen, or what you think the main character is going to do. Even when you find out how, like, the motivation behind why the killer is killing, it's like, what? It kind of like catches you off guard, and you're like, we like to add a twist of comedy as well into our movies.
Yeah.
So that's also in Murdercise as well, where you're like, oh, it's going to be stereotypical bad guy. He's a gross, evil killer. And it's not. You start finding out, you're like, wait a minute, are those guys the bad guys, or is this person the bad person? And you kind of for a minute start to wonder, like, wait, who's bad? Because I feel like I'm supposed to not like them, but I like them. And they are supposed to be bad, but we like to add that little element so that even though there's nostalgia and you kind of feel like it's all familiar, there's still something surprising, so that you're not like, oh yeah, I called it. Like, it was so predictable.
Yeah, exactly.
We try to add a little
bit.
Try to add a little spin in there.
I think it really works here for Murder Size, and I'm glad that you kind of brought up the comedic aspect, because this movie I think is so much funnier than it has any right being. Like, I was not expecting some of the scenes, like I think one of the funniest scenes that in our screening had the audience just cackling was the Joseph Floss Drew Maverick scene where they kind of go off to have their moment alone. But a lot of just Maverick's scene in this, he's kind of a scene stealer.
Oh,
yes.
I feel like you kind of just gave him like the best material. He's just kind of very funny, and I ended up actually quoting him a lot the day after the screening. Anytime someone would make me, I'm like, I'm a filmmaker now, I can't. And so, like, I just really loved how you guys use comedy. Can you talk about the process of balancing the horror and the comedy elements? Because I feel like that is always so hard to do. I feel like when horror comedies come out, they're either way too slapsticky or way too scary, and there's that middle line is very hard to kind of penetrate.
Yeah, I love that you just said way too scary. That actually, I think, I don't want to like take full credit because Paul's been an amazing writer, but I actually don't know a lot about horror films. I wasn't allowed to watch them growing up. And I was such a big chicken that even when I grew up, I was like, well, I'm not going to go back and watch all of them now. I'm too scared. Right. So my knowledge of horror and what is really, really scary, like I can't really handle it. My imagination is terrible. Like, what I imagine in a scary movie is way scarier than what the movie ends up being. But so I'm a scaredy cat by nature. So I think a lot of what I bring to our stories is a lighter element, something that is probably not used to being seen in horror, because I'm not from that background. I don't really have that background in my mind. So a lot of what the comedy that's in there is stuff that, like, it's coming from my sense of humor. It's coming from Paul's sense of humor. We both have a really silly, like, dry, sarcastic sense of humor. We love stuff like The Simpsons and Saturday Night Live and anything Fred Armisen, Bill Hader. I mean, we love
Kids in
those
the
guys.
Hall.
Yeah, totally. Freaks and Geeks. I mean, all that kind of stuff, dry, wry humor we think is hilarious. So we're not slapsticky type humor. We like stuff that's very sarcastic or dry, or even dark. And that to us is funny. And we like to let it go a little over the top. And we're like, if you get it, you'll get it. If you don't, you're going to probably hate it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be for the people who get it. So that scene so far from what we've heard, even though it's long and we had even more footage, we wanted to let it go even longer. We're like, how much can we push this?
Yeah.
It really was written for them. There was a script, but we also let them they're both excellent at ad-libbing. They can improv so well, and they just complemented each other with their skill. So even though the script, the bulk of what they said was written, a lot of what they said was just them improving off of each other and adding, taking it to a whole nother level.
Because I mean, even
so funny.
The movies that I like, even though that she doesn't like watch horror movies, but I did, even the horror movies that I like were most usually the fun ones, you know, like Ghoulies 2 or Critters 2 or Night of the Creeps or Return of the Living Dead Part 1 and 2, you know, movies like that. Like I always like the element of fun in those movies. And of course, you know, Sorority Babes and the Slime Ball Massacre, you know, stuff like that. You know, I just like the corny, like the campy ones. So that's what we really wanted to portray in our film, and especially this one, like more of a fun time. You know, we wanted like a rocking soundtrack. You know, you wanted cool kills and like cool characters, and like whenever you saw them on screen, or at least, you know, the screen that we had, you know, people were just like, we're so excited to see Drew, like you said, like he just stills the scene, you know. And so we just really wanted, what I've been really proud of is that people have been criticizing Murdercise, or when they do their reviews, they like that, you know, each character has like really their own personality and like each get time to shine. So I love that. Love hearing that.
Yeah, it was never meant to be actually like really scary. We don't make we don't
This would
make
be
those
fun.
kind of horror films. Our stuff is a little bit more suspense and psychological, I guess, if and just fun. It's supposed to be fun. Yeah.
There's a lot that I really like about the writing, because I feel like sometimes when you have these 80s like homage love letters, especially for like the slashers genre, a lot of the writing can sometimes feel like really corny, really cheesy, or just downright bad. And Murdercise like actually has like, it's a really smartly like written film, has a lot of, like you said, like that dry sarcastic humor in there, so like the jokes land because they're supposed to. But I think also one of the things that you brought up, Paul, was going to be one of my next questions, is kind of, this is an ensemble, and it's always really hard when you're doing an ensemble, especially within the slasher genre. I think that like one of my, I love the Friday the 13th series, but every person in that is just a throwaway character. They're an archetype.
Right.
And it really kind of seems like even the marketing for this movie is like every girl is standing on their own. You know, Candy, Phoebe, Cassandra, all of them really have their own unique personalities. What was it like, you know, when you guys were crafting each character and the ensemble, kind of, what was it kind of like? What was the process like in making sure that you guys were creating very distinctive characters that stood apart from one another?
Okay, again, I love this question.
Yeah.
It's so insightful, and it just proves that like if someone is looking for that, they will find it. So we don't want to like really beat people over the head with stuff, but the fact that you noticed that, I love it. It just means that it landed. We tried to do that with Streets of Vengeance as well, where it's a female group ensemble, and each of them have a distinct characteristic about them, personality. And same thing even with Bachelorette Party, a lot of those girls are their own personality. I think that also that comes from like, I'm obsessed with anything that's girl groups, like girl bands, like Spice Girls, TLC, and Vogue. I mean, Pussycat Doll. I don't know, anything that's a girl group, I'm down for it. I think we use Spice Girls, or I use Spice Girls, is probably like the easiest way to explain, because each one had their thing. Like one was the posh one was the baby spice, one was the ginger spice.
Yeah, the little subtitle.
Yeah, and everyone could pick the one that they felt like they related to that one the most. Like there was the sporty one and there was the fancy one. I like to take that element for female characters and include that into our stories when we can, so that each person does have their own distinct voice. You can listen to their dialogue and you're like, that makes sense for who they are because that's their character. I think another thing that helps is that we a lot of times write for actresses that we know personally.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes we are able to have that luxury, and someone like Nina, who plays the mafia princess, the rocker, the rebel girl, we're able to write that character for her, and she very much is that person in real life.
Right.
So she is someone to not fuck with. Like she is a badass in real life.
The badass with a heart of gold.
Heart of gold. She don't play, but she has your back. She is down 100. And I love that about her. Even for other actresses we've worked with in the past, if we have a relationship with them, which a lot of them we get to write to them and how they are in real life, or what we know that they're capable of portraying in a really great way. This particular cast, we made distinct characters, even though we didn't know Jessa or Kansas personally before we shot the movie. We met them on this project, but it just happened to work out just because their talent as actresses was so strong.
Yeah, and when I first started writing Murdercise, when I first started writing like the treatment, I guess, or like, the synopsis, I did make out a list of characters, and I would put something about them interesting to differentiate them from the others. Like I would put, oh, this girl really likes Motley Crue and she wants to get backstage, or this one, wants to be, B-movie horror queen, like basically like listing like their hopes and dreams kind of a thing. And I would give them a little subtitle. And not only do I like doing that just for the character and make them, different from each other, but also I like giving actors something to do. I really want an actor who is going to take a role to really sink their teeth into something, or have something to sink their teeth into, have something that they can utilize and they can build off of, and not just be, like you said, just a throwaway character. It's like, no, I want you to be this person, and this person's constantly eating. In the case for like Nikki, like, Adriana's character, like, oh yeah, you're constantly eating, but you're a stripper and you're this and you're that, just give you like little qualities, little character traits, that you can like really play with. And, a lot of them, I'm glad they really appreciate it. And I'm glad it's being noticed too. That's really cool.
I know, it's amazing.
Kind of curious, like with the creative process of kind of bringing those ideas to life. I know that being a cinephile, I read a lot of kind of actors like processes for creating their own characters. How much was that kind of like a collaborative process for you guys in bringing those together, where like you're like, I have these ideas, and then kind of communicating with the actors of like with kind of their ideas, and then kind of like compromising and meeting in the middle?
Yeah,
it depends on the actor.
Definitely depends. Yeah,
some of them who are more experienced, they like to ask more questions, and they're like, why do I do this, or why don't I say this instead? And there can be a conversation about that, because we're 100% open to what anyone wants to bring. I mean, we're just regulars, and we never would think like, this is it and our way is the best way. We've thought it out. Like there's people that bring stuff. I mean, like the Jessa and Drew scene, they brought so much that we didn't write that was phenomenal for that scene, and it's there, it's in there. Whatever someone can bring, if it's better than what we put on paper, by all means put it on screen.
We'll try it in rehearsal, or try it in a take or whatever.
But some of the people we work with, it may be their first time around, maybe their first film, maybe they're not so quite confident in going farther than what is written on the page. They like just to be told, like, just tell me what you think my character is, and I'll make that happen. And they don't necessarily want to tinker with it. Right.
They just want to be told enough. Our job is to give them enough to work off of, and if they don't feel like they have enough, then, then they can come and ask us, like, what does this mean? What are you talking about? But thankfully that really hasn't happened too much in these projects, because I do think we do give them enough where they do know what they're doing. They do know what their motivation is. Like I come from a background, like of really being in love with actors and acting process, because my cousin, he used to be like in like all of my short films when I was in film school, and he's a total actor's actor. We sit around talking about, Scorsese and his actors and how they work in their process, and Sidney Lumet and his directing, and, all that, the process, Elia Kazan, all that kind of stuff. We're really big cinema snobs back then, especially back then. So like that kind of stuff, like talking about acting and everything, like I love that kind of stuff. But mostly in these projects, the people do know what we want from them, and they ask us, "Oh, was that what you're looking for?" And then we just tweak it, like, "Oh, a little bit more, a little more exciting." Like Kansas. Like this is the first time I work with Kansas. She's an experienced actor and director, filmmaker herself. So she just kind of knew exactly what we wanted without really talking about it too much. Like I don't remember talking about the process too much. She would just do something, do her expression, show her face, and she's like, "Oh, how was that?" And I was like, "That's perfect. Like I love it. If you want, you can go a little crazier. If you look in the movie, you'll see her crazy eyes come out every now and then. Like that's just her like putting her twist on it, and just me giving her just a tiny bit of direction. Like she just to me, it felt like these people knew their characters very, very well.
They understood the assignment.
Like Gino, the Brian Hurd, he plays Gino. Like he totally just took that whole character. He just knew exactly what to do, knew exactly how to play that sleazy video producer. It was wonderful. Like all his little mannerisms and stuff. Like he added all of those things, and it's like, yes, more, like more, like keep doing, keep going, keep being crazy, keep showing those expressions of distraught and disgust.
Love that people have had enough trust in us. I think at this point we've been able to make enough films that people are like, okay, they're not just some weirdos that are like asking me to do some weird like acting scene. So I think there's a lot of they put a lot of faith in us. So when we say like, okay, I know you feel like you sound crazy or you look crazy, you could go harder. You could go 2 times harder. And they're like, really? Is that not like too much? And we're like, no, go more, go for it. Just really
next level.
Let it rip. And I think that just having a comfortable environment, a set where they all become friends and they're all having fun, they start to like let loose and feel more comfortable. And they start feeling like they can experiment more with like, can I try like screaming on this one, or can I try like doing this? And they start that's when they start feeling more comfortable with like tweaking stuff or adding things or really going for it over the top. So that's been really cool. It helps to see pros like Drew and Jessa and Kansas when they're like committing and they're going for it and they don't care how they look. And Drew's like, I'm gonna go. I know I look ridiculous in these shorts. I don't care. I'm going for it. People are like, well, if he's letting loose, let's all let loose. So then the whole thing just gets taken to another level of ridiculousness, and that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that there is like this film's a blast from start to finish. From the very first time that you hear a synth in the opening sequence of this movie. But one of the things that I really like about you guys as a duo of filmmakers is that while you guys are paying homage to these 80s slashers, they're not just telling these like simple throwaway stories. When you look at Slasherette Party, Slasherette has this like underlining theme of like long-term trauma that is woven in kind of like how it eventually bubbles out. And when you look at Kansas's character and throughout the course of this, she's it's kind of played for laughs, but when you sit down and you digest the character journey of what Phoebe actually goes through, it's this underlining factor of, kind of being a victim of bullying or never being taken seriously enough or kind of always being looked down upon, and how that eventually erupts in a rather violent way. Can you talk about kind of bringing these like more serious mental health themes to these characters, making them feel authentic, but also at the same time, like balancing that with the the humor and kind of the lightheartedness that these slashers are known for?
What a brilliant observer you are. You really like caught on to all of those underlying themes. I love that you are picking up on all this stuff, because there is a thread in all the movies we've made they are ridiculous and over the top, and they're supposed to be fun. And if you want to take it for face value and you're like, it was fun and it was crazy, I liked it, that's fine. If you're looking for something a little bit deeper, there are usually some kind of commentary on social commentary underneath in within the characters, and that's been through most of the movies we've done. I think, like you mentioned, Slashlight Party does have a lot of themes with that revolve around mental health and trauma. If you don't want to hear it, you don't have to. You can just take the movie for what it is. Same thing with like commentary on like maybe misogyny or incel stuff. Same thing with Streets of Vengeance. There's a lot of political commentary. That one we were shamelessly out there, like
sometimes you need this.
We're out there promoting.
I don't know
like
if we're shamelessly.
Well, that one
it's still disguised.
It's definitely pro
in a thriller.
It's
like
disguised in a thriller.
But it is. But it's very pro sex worker.
It's pro sex worker. It's very feminist. It's a very feminist movie. It's very much like you'll see very much of anti-misogynistic themes and stuff. And then Cinco de Mayo talks a lot about racial issues and stuff. But this one, Phoebe is, if you want to just take it face value, you're like, she's crazy. I don't know what her problem is. But if you do want to dig into it, there are a lot of deeper things going on, which I think that's where Paul's brilliant in his writing, because he starts writing that in from the get-go.
Yeah, there's actually a scene in the script that we didn't get to shoot. It had like a little bit of Phoebe's backstory, because for every like horror movie, slasher movie, there's always, an incident of trauma, that happens in the character's life. There's always that moment, like I heard like Tarantino and Eli Roth talk about it with Roger Avery, but they're talking about 80 slashers, and they're talking about, what's that traumatic moment that happened in Happy Birthday to Me or happened in Alice, Sweet Alice. They're just like going through all the horror movies and stuff. And so for this one, I wanted the same thing. I wanted like a moment for Phoebe where, she's having a flashback of, because in the movie, she's very prudish, and he's talking about like prostitution, and she hates that, all this stuff. And it's like,
anti-drugs,
anti-this. She had in the movie, in the script, she was supposed to have a mother who was a prostitute, and she had witnessed her killing like a John, like slitting the throat, like she was hiding in the closet when this was happening. And I took some like elements from Ginger Lynn's music video for Turn the Page, where she's a prostitute and she has her daughter hiding in the closet when her daughter sees her getting beat up by a John. Because Ginger Lynn's in this movie as well, and we were talking about her about that. So I thought, then we try utilize that kind of a scene and put that into Murdercise. But we never got around to shoot it, and I debated going back and holding out to shoot that scene. Got that maybe would give Phoebe's character a little bit more depth, but we just couldn't find time, couldn't find actors, locations, something like that. So I was hoping that it would still translate, come through, that maybe you don't know exactly what happened to Phoebe in her past, but something's there. She's obviously missing some sort of a parental, maternal kind of just like a paternal void in her life, because at the end with Ginger Lynn, and she makes that speech, and she's just so happy and relieved to belong to a family. So she has like family, mother issues, that kind of stuff. She, hates, like I said, has a negative view of prostitution and drugs, and just like sleep. She's just very, very, what you call prudish, I guess.
Well, she's struggling between being like an ultra goody and then doing these like really crazy things that she go against her own high standards. So she's really struggling with, how do I balance this? Because I want to be like a Girl Scout who loves Ronald Reagan, but this person pissed me off, and I'm not having that. So she acts out in the craziest of ways, and she's complex. We like that about the characters. We're not afraid to really play with that complexity.
It's really interesting to see the parallel journeys between Phoebe and Isabella as two characters, because the both characters could not be more opposite when they first share the screen together, and they end up actually having these like parallel things. And I think the thing that connects the two of the stories is this a lack of real like identity or like certainty of identity, because as you said, like Phoebe's kind of missing that maternal factor of the upbringing, and so she's kind of like torn between like, well, this is what X, Y, and Z says that I should do, and so they're the closest thing I've got to a parent, so this is what I'm gonna do, And then you have Isabel, who kind of is just kind of known as like the mafia princess, but she's
Mhm.
doesn't really have kind of her own path yet. And I think that was probably one of the most satisfying things to watch in the film was to kind of their parallel journey and kind of
Oh,
just
yeah.
see how their friendship grew.
Mhm.
Um, and when you're crafting these stories and you're crafting the journeys of these particular characters and weaving in the themes of identity, like how far into like backstories did you guys kind of
Mhm.
get? How much did you guys want to really make these trouble characters kind of like uh really kind of like really subtle, but kind of like
Mhm.
also you know kind of make like I said, keep maintaining that fun
Mhm.
80s aesthetic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. Like their relationship was a big part of the movie, and that really was really thought out because I did see that as like that was the love story of the movie, platonic,
Sure.
friendship, because it is, such a big issue for so many women that I know, like platonic friendship amongst other women, like female to female friendship. And so that's always been a big theme for us in our films, and it wasn't in this one for sure. And a lot of our characters have a little bit of ourselves in it. That's just, if you're gonna write something, you got to put, yourself into it.
Yeah.
So much so that, like I heard, I think, I don't know if it was Scorsese or Tarantino, they said, you should be a little bit embarrassed when you show the movie because you're kind of showing something of yourself, even though people don't know it,
Yeah.
but you are putting it out
Yes.
there, and
Yes.
so that is definitely a method that we use when we write. So
100%.
yeah.
I think a lot of our characters that we write, a lot of them, like Paul said, they are based on us, and particularly when it comes to writing for women, I think, not to be like sexist or stereotype, but sometimes certain guys don't know how women talk, and or they make them say stuff
Sure.
that's like we don't talk like that.
Mm-hmm.
No, a very rare woman would say the things that they make them say sometimes. And
Right.
I think when you don't understand like the motivation of like what's behind what do they want, or what are they trying to
Mm-hmm.
achieve, what are they trying to accomplish, why do
Mm-hmm.
they care about this videotape, or why do they care about this friendship, or why do they care about their fitness or being good, or why do they
Mm-hmm.
care about any of this? When you get down to that, it's what makes, I think, people attach more to the characters and the project itself, because
Yeah.
like you're mentioning, sometimes you watch movies and you're like, it could have been anybody, it's just like some generic
Sure.
something, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to attach to a movie like that.
Yeah.
I think when there's characters and there's representation of all kinds of complex individuals, you can pick the one that you like the most, and you're like, I'm so much like her,
Mm-hmm.
I love her, she's crazy, or that's exactly what I wish I could do.
Yeah.
um, I think that's what makes people attach more to our projects. It's so fun to hear people say, oh, this one, that one was my favorite, or
Right.
like Candy was my favorite, or
Mm-hmm.
Phoebe was my, or
Yeah.
Nikki was my favorite.
Yeah.
She just like didn't give a fuck. Like some
Yeah.
of them, that's like such a big compliment when people can see some elements of themselves,
Oh yeah.
whether they're like known for being the rebel, or they're known for being sloppy, or they're known for being slutty, or they're known for being whatever. I think that's cool when you can. I mean, I think that's the whole point of stories, is when you can identify, see yourself
Yeah.
in a character, and really feel like I love them. I want to see what they do, and I understand it
I've
more.
had more than a few people I've read saying that their favorite character is Isabella, for example, because she was a metalhead, and these people, they also were metalheads, and they were misfits, or they were isolated, or people didn't understand them. So like, yeah, I identify with her because she's just like me. And these guys are males, so like, so they identify with her because they can see themselves in her.
Yeah, and I think
Yes.
that's really kind of important. I think that kind of really separates the viewing experience for some people. Some people like I host our horror podcast here with my friend Mark, and I'm very known for being the analytical one, as this interview is evidence of that. And he just kind of shows up and he's like, I'm just here to talk about movies.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It is good to have, but I want to
Yeah.
switch gears a little bit back to the 80s aesthetic that you
Mhm.
guys bring in here. I mentioned it this a few minutes ago, but literally right out the gate, we hear this beautiful synth. Uh, how hard or what was the process like for you guys in finding someone that was going to bring that very 80s aesthetic to the score? Because I think that really doubles down on how this feels like almost like a lost 80s film.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And it kind of feels like it pairs really well with a lot of the ones that we talked about earlier with like Llewyn Quigley's,
Mhm.
horror workout, Death Spa, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Luckily for us, we've been very blessed with talented, phenomenal musicians. We had Vestron Vulture. He did a majority of our soundtrack for Cinco de Mayo, Streets of Vengeance, and Slash Rap Party. By this time, though, he was busy because he actually got signed to a label, so he started making more music, and he didn't have enough time to devote to this one. But now that we're here, I've met a lot more other talented musicians. Like the song that you mentioned at the very beginning, that's by a guy Marvin Maddox. He only did one song, but it was perfect, and he knew what the style of the movie we're going for because we had done photos and we had done like little videos and stuff. Utilizing music that I had from Vestron Vulture. So people who were out there and contributed. This time we got a lot of music contributed to us from strangers, basically. And so they saw our videos and our music and our pictures, and they got it. And I would put out like other references and stuff what I was looking for. So they just took that, made something, and then reached out to me and said, "Hey, man, like I made this song. Do you think you could use it?" And I listened to it. Like for example, the very very first song, I thought it was perfect. Like it's perfect. It's moody. It sets the tone when the girl August is working out in the gym. Perfect. I love it. And then by chance, this guy from Total Wolf from Canada, they hey, I have like an 80s rock song that I made or I can write for your movie Murdercise. I think it would be great. And I was like, oh, sure, I would love to hear it. It took a while for them to make, they worked hard on it. But then when they came with their song, it's the main song that I used for the end with the chainsaw scene, Murdercise. And like that song is so damn catchy. When I first heard it, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. Like I want this song,
I was
and
mind blown. I was
yeah,
like, are they saying murder
they're saying
size?
murder size.
Well, like, what the hell?
A
That
few
was
people from
amazing.
Genre Blast are telling me, yeah, man, that song's stuck in my head now. That's all I'm thinking about all day long. So I was like, dude, that was perfect. And there's no way I could have orchestrated that at all. Like I said, a lot of these people were just came out of from Canada, in America. I think another guy's from I think he's Swiss. I think he's somewhere in Switzerland. He gave me a few songs too, and like I said, these people just kind of just got it. They just
Grind Theory.
Yeah, Grind Day. He's from New York.
New York.
He did a bulk of the soundtrack for us. Like he did so many songs,
Amazing.
and he's been working with us since Streets of Vengeance and those two and Slash Rap Party. But he only had like maybe one or two songs, three songs per movie. So this time he had like 8 or something. So we've just been very blessed with musicians. Like I said, they just kind of just get it. We put out the visuals out there on Facebook and Instagram, and they're like, "Oh, I got something. I got something for that." And just been very lucky that they send it on over. And if not everything fits, sometimes like, oh, maybe not this one, maybe not that one, but this one, that song, that's the one. That's the one I'm going to use.
Yeah.
I think you guys captured the music. I grew up with like my mom grew had me grow up on like, Bon Jovi, hair
Yeah.
metal, Motley Crue,
Oh
Kiss.
yeah.
Like I loved a lot of those things. Like now as like I got older, like now I'm like big into like 80s pop music. And I think you guys are able to capture a lot of both of those eras, whether it's 80s hair metal or 80s
Mhm.
pop and kind of like, even like the one hit wonders with like a lot of the synth.
Yeah.
And I think you guys captured that really, really well. And it sounds like it was such
Thank
a cool
you.
opportunity for you guys to kind of work because, sometimes when you see a movie without music, music
Mhm.
kind of can has the ability to completely just reconfigure a scene. And I
Mhm.
Yeah.
think
Right.
that like right out the gate, like this was one of my most anticipated movies this year. And
Oh man.
Whoa.
uh Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
Cool.
And to be able to like right out the gate to just kind of have that synth like Sith synth and like that gag right out the gate before the title card even comes on and we even meet the main cast and crew. I
Mhm.
just was like, yeah, I thought you guys just captured that 100% perfectly.
Oh man, thank you.
That's so
Thank you so
awesome.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
Definitely
And
appreciate
yeah,
it.
and thank you to all the musicians who
Oh,
contributed their
yes.
work. Because I mean,
Did a great job.
I don't
Oh,
know,
yeah.
we don't know anything about making music, so we'd be screwed if we didn't have some talented people that could do it.
Yeah, definitely.
So so you guys just are kind of winding down on the Indiegogo for this. If you guys are interested in this, is now you guys can rent it for on Amazon. It's also on what's the other service?
Newvillagevideo.com.
Okay, so we'll provide links for both of those in the show notes below. But if you guys are like me, you guys want physical media, you guys can also through the Indiegogo can also purchase a Blu-ray. I follow you guys on socials. You guys are also working on the VHS tapes.
Yep.
Sticking on the subject of music, though, I am kind
Mhm.
of curious. Is this a soundtrack that you guys are potentially interested in putting on vinyl down the line?
You know, I know that the Grind Theory, because he has a lot of songs on the soundtrack. I know he wants to put something out. I don't know if he'll do vinyl. I know he loves vinyl. I know he wants to do vinyl. We tried to do vinyl for Streets of Vengeance because we had primarily one composer, Vestron Vulture. But I mean that's really up to the musicians. If they want to do it, I think there's a way because we use Kunaki to manufacture our discs and our DVDs and stuff, and they also do vinyl as well. So if there is enough of a demand out there, I think that'd be really cool to finally have. I've always wanted a vinyl soundtrack for our movies. We almost had it with Streets of Vengeance, but I think
That would be crazy.
yeah, I think Vestron Vulture. I think he was going through. I forget who he was going through. He was going through a different company to do the vinyl. He's trying to like raise funds, like a pre-order or something, but he just couldn't get enough for it. But yeah, I would love to. I would love to do. No plans yet, but I might have to look into that.
Yeah, planting some seeds in our head.
Yeah.
I'm only one man, but internet.
Yeah.
The internet, you guys have made crazier things happen, so make this happen. But on that note, Paul, Angie, thank you guys so much. The movie's called Murder Size. Like we said, you guys can rent it through New Video Village and Amazon right now.
Mhm.
Where can people follow you guys online as well?
Mainly Instagram, a_p_films. That's where we're mostly at. I'm mostly on Facebook, Paul Ragsdale. If you want to drop me a DM, talk about movies or whatever, go ahead, hit me up.
I'll talk to you all day.
Yeah, sure. Or you want to, ask me some questions, whatever. It's all good. But yeah, mainly Facebook and Instagram. You can find us.
And I want to also go ahead and plug this as well because we talked about this beforehand. But Streets of Vengeance and Slasher Red Party, they're
Yes.
currently streaming also right now on Tubi.
Yes.
I have not seen Streets of Vengeance as of this interview, so I cannot confirm or deny its quality. But I've seen Slasher Red Party. It's a lot of fun. It's if you guys liked this one or interested in Murder Size, it's kind of a lot of the same ones. It's a little bit darker
Yeah.
in tone. Gags are a little bit more bloody.
Yeah.
But go check these guys out. They produce great stuff. In the links below, you guys will also find links to our social media, our Patreon, more material like this, podcasts, interviews, and movie reviews, as well as our most importantly, our mental health resource library. So click the links in the show notes below and hit that subscribe button so this way you guys are not missing any Genre Blast content. Thank you guys again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.